Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, The Forces of Evil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In this program, we continue to look at the forces of evil and how they affect us. In other programs, we've looked at forces of good, the things that we can do to benefit ourselves in terms of righteous deeds and things like this in many of our other programs. But we also have to look at this other side, the dark side, the evil side, that affects our world. It has affected our world historically, it will affect our world in the future, and we have to deal with its effects in our world today. And in our previous two programs, we looked at one major area in which the satanic forces affect our world through what is known as creating doubts, the doubtful things. And we looked at it in a general sense, and we looked at it in a specific sense. There is another area which is related to it, and it's that of what is known as the halal and the haram, what is permissible and what is forbidden. You know, there are a lot of doubts which are oftentimes created around these things. You know, but the Prophet ﷺ had told us very clearly that the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And between them are doubtful areas which you can't really figure out. Are you sure? Is it halal or is it haram? So he said, really, whoever avoids the doubtful areas has protected his or her religion and their honor. But whoever falls into the doubtful areas ultimately falls into sin. So very, very important for us to stick with what is clear. Prophet ﷺ said, you know, give up what gives you doubts, you know, da' ma yaribak ila ma la yaribak. You know, give up what is doubtful, what creates doubts, for that which doesn't create doubts. A useful principle. Avoid the doubtful. If you stay on what is clear, then the chances of you falling into sin are lessened tremendously. Now, the second major area by which, you know, the satanic forces comes at us, it's another area of doubt, but you know, it has been covered over to such a degree that we tend to look at it in another perspective of things appearing to us to be good when in fact they're evil. We call this beautifying the desires and beautifying what is sinful. You know, and this is a massive field of operation for the satanic forces, and probably one of the most successful ones in our times, wherein through the media and everything else, a host of prohibited things, evil things, have been made to seem very beautiful. There are a number of verses in the Quran where Allah speaks about it. We can find in Surah Hijr, for example, verse 39, Surah Ali Imran, verse 14, Surah Fussilat, verse 25, and in Surah Al-An'am, that's the 6th chapter, verse 122, where Allah says, كَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِلْكَافِرِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. In that way, what the disbelievers was done was made to seem beautiful to them. What they did, what they were involved in, what the disbelievers are involved in, all the various corruptions which are in the world today are made to seem glamorous and beautiful. You know, if we look at any programs on the television or in the movies, the novels, etc., these novels promote, for the most part, corruption. The adult novels and adult movies, they promote fornication and adultery. This is made to seem very nice, made to seem very favorable. You know, people are made to cry, are made to feel emotions, or strings are plucked, and you know, where you end up, you watch a movie where, you know, you're feeling sorry for somebody who's committing adultery or somebody who's committing fornication. You know, you feel sorry for them, you feel happy for them. You know, with emotions are played with in these forms of the media. You know, where what is corrupt, which we should reject, which we should feel is evil and bad, we're instead feeling happy about, or we're feeling very sad and sorry for the people who are involved in these things. Of course, in the movies, it's not, real what we're seeing, but they're portraying concepts, So this is made to seem very beautiful and glamorous. We have leading figures in our world today who are right up in our faces, rulers of countries, princesses and things like this, who are openly involved in corruption or were openly involved in corruption, and the media was just lapping it up and just feeding it to us as glamour. Furthermore, even in the books and things which are coming out for the children, we have now, for example, the Harry Potter series, very popular series now on the television, people are buying it up, it's translated into different languages. I'm just reading in the newspaper, today that it's just been translated into German, and the German market kids are just waiting to lap it up, the 4th book in the series. But what are these books about, really? These books are about a magician, a kid who is a magician, involved in magic. And in the 4th book, and what follows it, now the readers are introduced to various magical spells, etc. And the kids are already practicing and doing it. And from the Islamic perspective, this is abhorrent. Magic and the teaching of magic and magicians, this is something forbidden. The punishment for practicing magic in Islamic law is execution. It's so serious. Islam is opposed to it. It's fundamentally evil. I mean, though it may be turned into entertainment and people are enjoying it, it's just a story, it's just a movie or whatever, but the reality is that it is evil. The area and the world of magic is an evil world. But it has been made, as I said, to seem very beautiful, very attractive, very exciting to us. So these are just a few of the areas, of course there are many, many, many others. And what we find, as Allah tells us, that what is happening in the case of this beautification, the case of making things appear beautiful to us, is that our basic desires are being played on. Our desires, the basic desires that we have, human desires that we have, these are played on. And so we are very attached to these things, we become emotionally attached to them, but they're in fact evil things. And the problem is that, you see, if a person is doing something wrong out of ignorance, such a mistake can easily be corrected by providing knowledge for them. Knowledge is the cure for ignorance. But where a person is doing it out of their desires, where they have just become locked into it, they've become addicted to this thing, then it's very, very difficult to root it out. Because the person has knowledge. What it requires to deal with something like this is a great struggle, a great jihad on the part of that individual against himself or herself. It's very, very, very difficult. And Prophet ﷺ informed us that each and every one of us has with us an evil jinn who is whispering to us evil, the qareen. And he feeds our evil side information, feeds the desires information, encouragement to do what is wrong and to do what is displeasing to Allah. Of course, at the same time, Allah has also given each and every individual an angel. An angel is assigned to each and every individual, encouraging that individual to good. So it's not just a one-sided thing where God has just, made us destined for evil and bad, etc. No, there is a struggle going on. We're in a dialectic and a dynamic, struggle between good and evil. And we all, of course, experience this. Now, one of the major ways by which evil and corruption is made appealing and attractive is through alcohol and intoxicants. And we have an authentic hadith narrated in al-Bayhaqi in which the Prophet ﷺ said, اجتنبوا الخمر فإنها أم الخبائث. Avoid alcohol and intoxicants, for indeed it is the mother of corruption and filth. Why? The West makes alcohol seem very appealing. It is something, all the various ads, etc. for alcohol. Alcohol is promoted in all the different, walks of life. So much so that I mean, though people tackle cigarettes and they make a big thing about cigarettes, and of course cigarettes are haram. They are from drugs which addict people and they destroy them. Cancer kills. So it should be eradicated. But what you find is that people tend to tackle cigarettes in very, very strongly. I mean, America tried it for some years back in the 20s, the era of the Prohibition era, but after some, few years, some 10 years or whatever or less, they had to repeal those laws and they went back to drinking. So why does Islam prohibit it outright? It prohibits it because it lowers human inhibitions. See, natural inhibitions which a person may have in a sober state, where if you suggest to them, why don't you come and do this, or well, let's do that, or well, what do you think about doing this thing here? The person will say, no, it's not good. I wouldn't be interested, no. But in a state of intoxication, then these things can appear attractive, because the inhibitions, the natural reluctance or shyness to do these things has been subverted by the intoxicants, by alcohol. And this is why you find people when they go to a party, for example, they may be normally very quiet people, once they get intoxicated, you find they become loud and loud mouth and they're ready to do anything, daring, this kind of crazy acts, etc. Find most people are doing them in a state of intoxication. And when you go and look at the violent crimes in society, what you find is that a huge proportion of the violent crimes are committed in states of intoxication. This is reality. The amount of damage which is done to the society from intoxication, whether it's people driving drunk and killing other people with their vehicles, etc., the massive number of lives that are lost as a result of this, or damage to property and these type of things, or loss in productivity, because of intoxication, etc., of workers and that. It is massive. I mean, you're talking about billions of dollars lost because of the harm of intoxicants. However, without the will to oppose it, because of the fact that it's something prohibited by God, when a society accepts that, then you can't do it. You try to impose it from the top, people will refuse it. People will fight against it. So when you can go to societies, Muslim societies, where though they're not governed by Islamic law today, still the mass of Muslims will not drink alcohol. Why not? It's available. It's being sold here or there. Why don't they drink it? Because they know that it was prohibited by God. Muslims were known as the teetotalers. This is a nation of people who avoided strong drink, alcohol, and intoxicants, etc. I mean, it's not to say that they're not, this is the majority, but you'll find a minority amongst them who do take these things. But, as I said, this alcohol has a massive damaging effect on society, on families, marriages, children, etc., etc. The harm is uncountable. It's incalculable. When we read about certain crimes, really heinous crimes, you read about a father raping his 4-year-old daughter or 5-year-old daughter, you wonder, what in the world? How could a person possibly think to do this? This is something beyond human thought. It's incredible. It happens. But when you go back and you read, this man was intoxicated at the time. I mean, it's not an excuse. From Islamic point of view of Islamic law, this person will receive the full punishment, death. That person will be executed. Finish. In the West, maybe they might take into account, Western legal systems may take into account the fact that he was intoxicated and these other kind of things. But from Islamic perspective, you commit that crime, then you are going to pay. From Islamic perspective, you lose your life. It's heinous, it's horrible. You shouldn't have been drinking in the first place. That we don't take it as an excuse. But the point is that is what provided the necessary background for such heinous crimes like that to take place. And there are no end of other examples. I could draw, no need to go through all of them, but just to know that this is one of the major sources of evil of corruption, wherein what is evil and bad appears good, appears attractive in the sight of people. Now, some people may argue, as they do, that the doctors have said that, a person who drinks half a glass of wine with their meal, it helps to digest that meal. Some even argue that people who drink a half a glass have less chances of heart attacks. It lowers the chance of heart attacks. Oh, it's wonderful. But now, if we put on one scale the benefits of this half a glass of wine, if it is in fact true, these are arguments presented by some elements in the scientific community, if we accept it as being fact, and when we put it on one scale, and then we put on the other scale the massive damage and harm that is done by alcohol in society, hey, this benefit which is spoken of is nothing. It is not worth even speaking about when you consider the massive harm which comes from it. Some people say, well, okay, we can understand that, but let us forbid those people who are not able to control their drink. Again, you cannot forbid things under that kind of basis, because everybody will say, I can control my drink. Who's going to say, if drink is something pleasurable, etc., who's going to say, I can't control my drink, so I won't drink? I'll have it prohibited from me. But we'll leave it for the others who can. No, everybody is going to say, I can control. Because everybody would like to have the pleasure of drinking the alcohol. So Islam forbids it across the board. No exceptions. Because the harm which comes from it is so far, so great, that we have no exceptions for it. And it's prohibited in small quantities, meaning if one were to take a teaspoon of alcohol, or one were to take a whole glass of alcohol, they're both completely prohibited. As the Prophet ﷺ said, what intoxicates in large amounts is prohibited in small amounts. That's a general principle. Now, if we take a substance which may have in it a percentage of alcohol, for example, there are certain fermented drinks. There's certain, for example, vinegar. You can find some 0.001% of alcohol because vinegar is made from alcohol. So you'll find a number of things out there on the market where there's a small percentage of alcohol in it. But it is such that no matter how much of that substance you drink, you'll never get intoxicated. Such a substance is not prohibited. Some people mistakenly think that the prohibition of small quantities of things which intoxicate in large quantities includes such cases, but it doesn't. We should be very clear on this. Because something which is within another substance, and that quantity will not intoxicate no matter how much of that general substance you take, that is not considered to be an intoxicant. Similarly, for example, in the time of Prophet ﷺ, people came to him with different drinks that they used to have there, fermented drinks. And they asked about it, can we drink this, can we drink that, so and so. So he said that once it becomes an intoxicator, there are periods of time that if you leave this thing for more than 3 days or whatever, then it becomes an intoxicant, clearly. Then that's when it becomes forbidden. But prior to that, the fact that a certain amount of fermentation has taken place, so the thing has a little tang to it, but it's not intoxicant. No matter how much you drink of it, you're not going to get intoxicated. Then such products are not considered to be forbidden. And if one were to forbid on that basis, one could end up forbidding things like even yogurt, because you have so many substances on the market where there's a very, very small percentage of alcohol in it. Not that it was added to it, but it's a byproduct of the process which produced that particular substance. So cases like this we don't include. But whatever is clearly alcohol, the foundation of it is alcohol, then to take it in small amounts is forbidden, as it would lead to the taking of this thing in larger amounts, where it would naturally intoxicate. So in this segment here, we've been looking at the beautification of desires and sin, how the satanic forces can promote evil through playing on our desires. We said this is the most dangerous and difficult area to deal with and to correct. Because a person who does acts of evil or sin out of ignorance, because they just didn't have the knowledge, that problem can be cured very easily by providing knowledge. Whereas a person who does sin, where they know that is wrong, but it's just their desires are locked into this thing, then such an evil, such a harm is very difficult to root out. Much, much more difficult. It requires struggle, jihad, fighting against the self, the desire, the ego, the nafs, whatever we call it. So that basically was what we were looking at, and we added to it one of the major areas that provides a means of beautifying the sinful and the evil and the corrupt, and that was alcohol. Alcohol, which makes people feel relaxed and comfortable to do things which they would not normally do if they were sober. In our next segment, we'll go on to look at different elements of sexual deviation, music and singing, as part and parcel of the beautification of desires and sin. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, The Forces of Evil. And I hope that you'll continue to follow the program. If you'd like to contact me, to send any comments, etc., you may contact me at bilalphillips.com. That's BILALPHILIPS.com. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.